Thank you.
That's good.
Hold on.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great
history, and for generations, people with your gender answered calls, typed up letters, and cooked meals for men. And they said, "Yes, sir." The only compliment men ever gave a woman was how pretty her dress, hair, and body was, and the fact that she is not too much and just the right amount because she agrees and doesn't talk back. That's the definition of a good woman. When a woman demonstrates the same type of attributes that a man does, 9 out of 10 times she is called aggressive, wild, unhinged, too much, and bossy, whether or not there is a man or a woman on the receiving end. Why not call her what she actually is? An assertive individual, a go-getter, a confident woman with a passion and professional and growth mindset. In Houston. Today we were blessed by the presence of nonprofit organizations such as The Bridge, Daya, Amana, MGage, and the presence of women at Microsoft, as well as local officials and police department fighting against sex trafficking and for our protection. Houston Police Department works hard to ensure all of our children grow up in their own families. Our first speaker today is Sherman. Sherman is an ordinary Iranian-American turned rights activist. She is a devoted altruist with a deep desire to be a force for positive change in the world. Her voice is her most powerful weapon. Please help me welcome Sherman to the stage.
Living in a country where the law dictates that women are second-class citizens. Schools are segregated by gender starting in kindergarten. Buses are gender segregated, with men seated at the front and women in the back. Singing and dancing in public is illegal if you are a woman, as is riding a bike. All premarital relationships, illegal. Public displays of affection, including holding hands and hugging, illegal. Sleeveless shirts, showing your ankles, also illegal. The law does not guarantee equal pay for equal work, prevent sexual harassment, or criminalize violence against women. The sentence for killing a woman is only half that of killing a man, because the law states that a woman's worth is only half that of a man's. You need 2 female witnesses to equal 1 man. A son inherits twice as much as a daughter. A man receives his deceased wife's entire estate, while a widow gets only 1/8 of her husband's. A child bride as young as 9 can be married with her father's consent. A man can get a divorce simply by declaring it verbally, but a woman must prove in court that her husband is an addict, abusive, insane, or imprisoned. Even after a divorce, A mother can have custody of her children only if they have not yet turned 7. But the regime finds that it has maneuvered itself into a dead end. You know why? It's unable to arrest and prosecute millions who defy hijab laws. Yet, it can't go easy on it because their theocracy hinges on it. They have no way out. They know the regime's end is inevitable. The protests have subsided, but the revolution lives on in the hearts and the minds of the Iranian people. The murder of Mahsa Amini marked an irreversible and fundamental cultural renaissance in Iran. Mahsa will never wake again. But her story awakened all of Iran and reverberated across the entire world. Earlier this week, the United States House of Representatives passed the Mahsa Act to sanction senior Iranian regime officials, sending a clear message to Iranian freedom fighters that we share your battle cry. Zan, Zindagi, Azadi, woman, life, freedom.
I have 3 little girls myself. I believe deeply that all of our equality and all of our destinies are so interconnected. So what is happening every day in Iran affects my daughters, affects you, because we are all one, and we are going to continue to rise together in our freedom, in our equality, and it's only in working together that we will activate at the level we need in this country, in Iran, and in every country around the world. Because I want all women, I want my daughters and all of our daughters to grow up with their inherent freedom and equality and be respected for the characters and the integrity that they possess. Because our equality is inherent, and together we will keep fighting in Iran, in the United States, in every country, because our daughters deserve it, and our sons, because again, I believe all of our equality is interconnected. I will close with this beautiful proclamation from our City of Houston, Mayor Sylvester Turner, and we also have a recognition from Harris County as well. And before I read, if we could please just have a moment of silence again to honor Mahsa, her life and her legacy. Whereas in September of 2022, the world was shocked when Mahsa Amini, also known as Jina Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Iranian girl, was arrested on the basis of inadequate head covering. And whereas her unjust treatment and untimely death became a catalyst for the first ever female-led revolution called the Woman, Life, Freedom Movement, where women demanded nothing less than basic human rights and equality between all men and women. And whereas women in Houston and women in Harris County have been moved by the global Woman, Life, Freedom movement in Iran and are encouraged to fight against the human rights violations against women. And whereas on September 15th, 2023, proud, brave, brilliant, bold Houstonian women will host an amazing event that is slated to provide discussion and strategy to change the unjust course of the history concerning women. The City of Houston and Harris County commends all entities that will engage and participate in this movement to preserve, and to continue the legacy of Mahsa Amini. Therefore, I, on behalf of Sylvester Turner, Mayor of the City of Houston, and I, as Leslie Briones, one of your Harris County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim September 16th, 2023 as Mahsa Amini Day in Houston, Harris County, Texas. Thank you.
This subject's very important. It should be important to all the men, just like it's important to all the women. Not that women are more important than men, we both complement each other. But there are real struggles for myself. You know, I'll start with myself, being a hijabi Muslim woman living in Houston. And as diverse as we are, we still face challenges. Can you hear me? Speak up.
Push it up.
Push it up, okay. Anybody can hear me? If you say no, that means you heard me.
We need black women in here.
So before I talk about refugee services and what we do and how we serve the community for the last 15 years, I worked in the oil and gas business. And I was one of very few women in that industry, male-dominated, but that didn't really bother me. That actually kind of gave me an edge, right? Like, I'm a woman, I'm here with you guys. And I would go every year to the oil technology conference, and you would see not very many women there. And I would want to say after 10 years, we started seeing a lot more women in the industry, a lot more women in leadership positions, because we started to speak up to understand that we add value, we have ideas, we can execute just like anyone else.
You see, man made the car to take us over the road. Man made the train carrying a heavy load. Man made the electric lights to take us out of the dark. Man made the boat for the water like no one made the art. This is a man's world, but it wouldn't mean nothing without a woman now record. You see, man makes a little baby world.
We need to give a hand up to come here. I'm glad you guys don't have my bio up there because I am at the same time. So this is such a remarkable event. We talked about a lot of stuff today, but two things I do want to touch on is freedom. Who would think that a concept that existed 200 years ago in this country, the United States of America, would do a fled political, religious persecution and turn something so great with a simple thought. Taxation without representation, that's a fight for a century. That's why we're here today, where we are. That we all can stand tall and proud, this great nation, one nation under God, with justice and liberty for all. That's so true. But I know we mentioned a couple of tragic stories, one in particular with Mahsa Amini. But today is not about that tragedy, it's a trial. The trial meaning the fact that one 22-year-old young lady stand up to tyranny and refuse to accept what it was in the interest of freedom and liberty. That what she would celebrate as a tribute to what she is right now. Now millions around the globe on the planet is honoring her, which is tomorrow, on the 16th of September. So Council, as long as you know you and people like you to stand up for what's right, our nation will continue to be great. Rest assured that I want to thank you for this opportunity. The Houston Police Department will always stand alongside to ensure that liberty is protected, to ensure freedom is safeguarded, to ensure safety is guaranteed for every citizen within the city, within our community. Thank you.
It started with a safety plan, securing her well-being as we plotted the course ahead together. At Thea, we present choices. True change does not happen without you all. It is your vocal commitment to ending violence and supporting survivors that transports women from surviving to thriving. 27 years and counting, I thank you for joining our mission.
That aid our efforts to prevent violence. Topics such as healthy relationships, teen dating violence, gender socialization, and a personal favorite of mine, bystander intervention, because the ability to make part of my job, and it is where I have witnessed some of the most meaningful change. These groups give us the opportunity to work with the same young people for roughly 7 to 10 weeks, and during this time, boundaries, and self-esteem. We communicate to the young people that they deserve respect in all of their relationships, and that their thoughts, feelings, and opinions matter always. We do this because a major part of preventing violence and moving the movement forward involves both supporting and respecting the next generation. Thank you.
Slavery used to just be picking cotton. And then as time went on, slavery turned into not being able to drink water out your water hose. Slavery turned into, as much as we talk about the freedoms that are not extended to us, one of the things that we don't expound our attention on is the freedom portion, right? Because ladies, freedom is your portion. I believe wholeheartedly that God delivered me so that I can deliver the masses. Set out for your own self. Because at the end of the day, rescuing yourself, that was only a fraction of the solving. You only solved one piece of the puzzle. Now,
And today, we're still fighting for basic human rights in Iran. Cyrus the Great treated women as equals to men. During the construction of his that in Persepolis, which everybody knows where that is, if you don't, please Google it, all men and women were paid. All labor, men or women, were paid. They were not slaves. They did not work for free. They were all paid, and they were all paid equally. They were treated with kindness and compassion, and women had paid maternity leave. 2,500 years ago in Iran, in the Great Persia, we had maternity leave for women. And today, I know women that don't want to have children because they can't take maternity leave. We should never live in a situation that we cannot have children. So it's HPD protected us, and I can't thank them enough. Special thanks to the Vice Student and Lieutenant Merit. We do have some honorary gifts for y'all. I can't call it a gift, sorry, politically correct. Honorary coins. I'm sorry. Mr. Kawiani, and I don't know where Mr. Yazani is, to join us because we have a special gift for you. I want to leave those pictures, I'm going to go. Can we hold this up too, or no? It's very heavy. Be careful. I live, girl. So I need to help me.
Tighter.
You don't have a choice.
Awesome, thank you.
جبتی گریک رو نمیدونم منیجر شمشیری میگوردن بعد چیز خب بعدا با صحبت
با سرکوب، با تهدید و با روش‌های وحشیانه علی نفنما از صفحه‌های تاریخ.
دنیا زیرکساری DONYAZIRAKSARI.
Thank you. Talk about where we are, talk about what brings us together today.
Today we are at the Wenham Hotel in Houston commemorating Mahsa Amini. We do have a proclamation from the city of Houston that was issued for September 16, naming September 16 in Houston after Mahsa Amini, which is very well deserved. As y'all know, Mahsa Amini was murdered by the Islamic Republic regime in Iran because she was accused of indecent hijab. Today, we're marking that day for women, for life, freedom, and we are going to shed light on human rights violations against women and the big issue that we have in the city of Houston, which is sex trafficking.
So, first and foremost, can you give me your name and spell it?
Yes, my name is Shermin, Shermin.
And your last name?
Hassanpour, Hassanpour.
And you live here in Houston, correct?
That's right.
And talk about what your motivation was for coming out today.
So I, like many other Iranians in the diaspora, are watching the events that are happening in Iran very closely. And the whole women life freedom movement is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm here to show my support for that.
Okay, so, we know why you're here. Are you a panelist? Are you here as, what role do you fill in this event today?
So I'm here as a guest speaker, and I'm speaking on Iran specifically and women's rights in Iran.
You know, this weekend is the year anniversary, correct?
That's right.
And talk about what's changed in the last year.
A lot has changed. So just a year ago, it would have been unthinkable for women to walk freely in Iran without a hijab. Now, a large percentage of women are doing that. The hijab has now become a symbol of the regime, and Iranians reject the regime, and that's why they reject the hijab. And this is more than just the hijab. Hijab has been a pillar of the Islamic Republic, and by knocking that down, the next step is the Republic itself.
You know, we've had a lot of ups and downs and a lot of bizarre things happen over the last year. I mean, schools being poisoned, you know, people disappearing. You know, what is the hardest part of all of this for you personally?
I think the hardest part for me is that there's very little that I can do, but I'm not going to sit at home and watch and do nothing. I'm here and I'm going to keep being Iran's voice, and I take every opportunity to speak publicly, particularly to people that are not of Iranian descent, to spread the word and help people understand the human rights violations that are happening in Iran and explain why the world would be better and safer without this regime in power.
You know, I talk to a lot of people in your community, and one of the questions that I like to ask every time is, if you could talk to the people here in the United States who have no experience and no understanding of what's going on, what do you think is the single most important thing to understand, number one? And two, where do you suggest they go to find more information and resources?
So it's really, really important to understand that what happens in Iran is important to us as Americans, because injustice to one person is injustice to all. And we cannot tolerate human rights violations as a free nation. We have to be that beacon of light and spread that hope and that freedom all the way around the world. And when we see injustice in the world, we have a duty to speak up and stand up and say, that's not right. And that's why I'm here today. And I think with the passage of the Mahsa Act this week in the United States House of Representatives, that sends a clear message around the world that America does not stand for injustice, and that Americans stand with the freedom fighters in Iran and share in their rally cry of woman, life, freedom.
You know, it's a highly controversial topic, but you know, this week, our government, while the House is passing that legislation, is simultaneously returning 5 Iranian terrorists or intelligence officers and providing $6 billion to this Islamic regime. That kind of a mixed message, what does that say to you? How do you respond, or how do you feel about something like that?
It's very disappointing. Obviously, everybody knows that this regime will use that money to fund their terroristic activities, not just within the country, but elsewhere in proxies that they are fighting. And it's just very disappointing to see that, you know, we're dealing with a terrorist regime, that we're paying ransom for Americans, and really all that does is encourage a terrorist regime to take more hostages. You know, as much as I'd like to see our Americans come home, I don't think it's right to deal and to pay ransom for hostages. And it's a price that we pay as Americans. We are free in this country, and unfortunately, other countries don't respect that.
Can I have your name once again?
My name is Sharmeen Hassanpour.
Thank you.
My name is Carolina Ortiz.
And how do you spell it?
Carolina, Ortiz, Ortiz.
So what compelled you to come out today?
What brought me here is that I was personally assaulted on 4th of July. And so I heard about the movement and I wanted to share my story. And it's so important for all women to know the importance of learning self-defense and learning their rights as a woman and where to reach out to and who to talk to about the situation.
You know, so you've had this experience recently, and you've learned a lot about you've learned a little bit about what's happened in Iran in the last year, and I mean, what goes through your mind? What goes through your heart when you hear these stories about this?
It's really sad because being a Hispanic woman, we go through that also in my state, in my city, and just knowing that women can't express themselves, wear what they want, eat what they want to eat, and take their children where they want to play. It's really sad, and it happens around the world, so it's really important to really just talk about it.
If you don't mind transitioning to Spanish real quick, just talk about what brought you out here and why you relate so.
Yo vine aquí hoy porque escuché del movimiento. Yo personalmente estuve en una situación que sufrí asalto el 4 de julio y cuando supe del movimiento era muy importante contar mi historia y aprender y saber que no soy la única mujer que está sufriendo por esto.
And I'll have you give me in Spanish and then in English since we're in Spanish. Just talk about where you'd like to see things go in the near future to help resolve some of these issues.
Me encantaría saber que la mujer pueda tener más derechos y saber que uno como mujer tengamos los mismos derechos que un hombre en pago, en lo que podemos usar, los lugares donde podemos ir y tener la libertad de ser quien somos nosotras.
And in Spanish, in English rather, where would you like to see us go in the near future?
I would love to see us women be able to have the same rights as men, get paid the same, get treated the same, and just be able to be who we are, express as we want to express ourselves as women.
Awesome. May I have your name once again?
Carolina Ortiz.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my name is Yasin, Yasen.
Thank you. And where are you from, Yasin?
I was born here in Houston. My parents, however, are from modern day Uganda. Ethnically, I am of South Asian descent.
And what compelled you to come out this afternoon?
The reason why I wanted to come out this afternoon is because I heard about this event, about the whole Mahsa Amini situation in Iran. And the reason why I wanted to come out is simply because I have been hearing a lot about it in the news. I've been hearing about, I am a student of history, so I've read and heard a lot about Iran's history, their politics, their economy, and how it is in the news cycle. And when I heard about this event, it really intrigued me because I was like, it's not every day that I get to encounter everyday Iranians in my everyday life, who are talking about some of these issues that are affecting them both here and overseas.
And so you've been here. You sat through the program. What are your takeaways? Any changes in any impressions or changes in your perspective?
So I would say that the biggest change and impression that I had is that there definitely is the sentiment that the fight for freedom in Iran is not just limited to Iran, right? This is part of a broader struggle that we are seeing from women's rights in Afghanistan. We are seeing the fight against sex trafficking, and there is one aspect that I feel this is also connected to. The fight for women's rights in that region is part of a broader fight to increase democratization in that region.
And do you see that as a good thing, or do you? Or is it just? It is what it is.
So, what we are facing right now, right, in the world, is a fight against authoritarian governments. We are seeing democratic decline all over the world. We saw that with the January 6th insurrection here in the United States. We are seeing that in Brazil. We saw that in Hungary. We saw that in Turkey, Egypt. Afghanistan recently collapsed. Iran, the Philippines, India. All of these countries are facing what we would call democratic decline, right? The fight for women's rights in Iran is not just a fight for women's rights in Iran. It's part of a broader struggle to ensure that democracy can actually flourish in that country. Same thing in Afghanistan. Even though the Taliban is now in control in Afghanistan, the fight for women's rights in Afghanistan is part of a broader struggle to ensure that Afghanistan can have a government that's actually representative of their people, a government that's actually going to respect minorities in Afghanistan and respect the rights of all citizens, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or gender.
My name is Mansi Baxi. It's spelled Mansibaxi.
And what brought you out this afternoon?
I'm here today to represent Daya. We are a Houston-based nonprofit that primarily supports South Asian survivors of domestic violence, and we provide culturally specific services.
And how familiar with all of this, with Mahsa Amini and the protests are you?
I have been aware about the entire movement and her death since it happened. We have a lot of Iranian clients. After the U.S. Census changed they changed their demographics, like how they redid their like race and ethnicity classifications, and they put Iran under South Asia. So Daya now provides services to Iranians as well, and of course Afghanistanis